Well, good morning, everyone. We've been looking at Exodus 5 so far this week, and we've seen how this story brings up the two most important questions that we could ever ask ourselves. Who is God, and who am I? Everybody has to answer these questions somehow, and how we answer them determines how we live our lives. We saw yesterday Pharaoh's answer and how those answers explain his actions in the story. Yet we also saw how we often try to answer the questions in very similar ways to Pharaoh. So that's often at the root of our sin. Today we're going to see how the people, the Hebrew people, answer these questions. But before we get to that, think about how you normally react when things go bad in your life. You know, when things are going well, it's easy for us to say that we trust God and depend on Him as we should. What happens when bad things happen? What do we do? What is our first reaction? Think about that as we look at what the people did. Now remember, Exodus 5 begins with afterwards, because it is after Moses and Aaron went to the elders of the Hebrew people, performed their miracles before them, and told them that God was going to rescue them from Pharaoh. So between the end of chapter 4 and the beginning of chapter 5, things look great for the people. Yet then Pharaoh comes down very hard on them. And how they react to that, what they do in response to that evil, shows how they answer these two crucial questions. So let's look at it. We're going to read chapter 5, verses 15 to 21. But again, after this is over, go back and read the whole thing. Even if you read it yesterday, it'll be good for you. Then the foreman of the people of Israel came to Pharaoh. "Why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given to your servants, yet they say to us, 'Make bricks.' And behold, your servants are beaten, and the fault is in your own people." But he said, "You are idle, you are idle. This is why you say, 'Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord.' Go now and work. No straw will be given to you, but you still must deliver the same number of bricks." The foreman of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble. And when they said, "You shall by no means reduce your number of bricks, your daily task each day," they met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them as they came out from Pharaoh. And they said to them, "The Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." So notice what they do when things go bad. They go to Pharaoh first. Pharaoh is not their God. Pharaoh is not their deliverer. Pharaoh is their slave driver. Moses has just told them that God would rescue them, but they go to Pharaoh without even praying, without seeking God's guidance on what they should do. And 3 times they call themselves your servants to Pharaoh. And then they call down a curse on Moses and Aaron, expecting God, Yahweh, to curse them for them. You see, they don't understand God either. They seem to think that God is like a tribal deity, kind of like Pharaoh. They don't see God as someone who is really in charge of everything that's going on, who has a good and perfect plan for his glory and for their good, and a God who is willing, they think that God's a God who's willing to curse for them. They don't see him as the foundation of all existence, the God who said, "I am, that's my name." So they try to solve their problems in their own ways first. How they react shows what they really think about God and themselves. And again, before we judge them for their reaction, think about how we react when bad things happen. What is our first instinct when bad things happen? Is it, if we really believe that A, God is in complete control of all that is going on, and B, he wants us to live our lives for his glory, then our first reaction would be to pray and to look to his word for guidance on what to do. Yet is that often how we react the first time? Unfortunately, no. We often react in the same way that the world reacts, and we don't really look to God's word for guidance. I mean, let's take how many people are reacting to the murder, to the injustice and murder of George Floyd, and the inequality that it reveals. Many Christians have taken to the streets and protest. Now, that's not necessarily wrong. Don't hear me saying that that's wrong per se. If it's done peacefully, it's not wrong, and it could actually help. But if our first reaction is to do that, instead of turning to God in prayer and listening thinking about what his word wants us to do, then we're showing that we trust the government and social solutions more than the power of prayer and the power of the gospel going forth. Maybe eventually Christians do need to protest, but we should first begin by praying, seeking the Lord's guidance, reading his word, and listening to what's going on to those who are being oppressed. Maybe that takes longer, but when we don't start with that, we're showing what we really think about God and ourselves, that he's not in complete control of all of this, and we have to come up with a solution on our own. So again, the question is, what is our first reaction when things go bad? What does that show about how we answer these questions? You guys think about that, and I'll see you again tomorrow.